And welcome back to the Zanpakuto Creation Series. This Zanpakuto comes to us from Lucky D Coyote, who asked the question, what is Madara Uchiha's, from Naruto's, Zanpakuto? And I always got to be careful. I know it's not Madara, it's Madara. Madara. It's at minimum, it's either Madara or Madara. Like there's like a little bit of a flourish on that. But obviously, he was the secret main antagonist, and then there's the secret main antagonist of Kaguya of the original Naruto series from Naruto to Shippuden. But obviously, Madara is a huge figure in the Naruto mythos and Naruto history, and he was one of the most powerful shinobi of his time and in overall period. So, what type of Zanpakuto does a guy like this have? Well, let's kind of, he was very, he did care very much about, the people in his life, but he was also very power-driven, but power-driven with a purpose. Like, he had an end game. He had a goal he wanted. He wanted peace, but through, different means. And then say just, talking it out. It was peace through, what's the best way to put it? Peace through subjugation, more or less. Thanks to the infinite Tsukuyomi. And I feel as though you can now, with certain characters, there's personalities that you can see lend themselves to their Zanpakuto type. Kenpachi, Ikaku, Renji for mostly all lend themselves to a melee type. Renji's a bit different though; he's got some Kido ability as well. But you can see why they are melee types. But then you look at individuals like, say, Kyoraku, who's very intelligent, very crafty, very witty, very childish. Like, it makes sense why his Zanpakuto is Aikido-based. Urahara completely makes sense why his is Aikido-based. He's a scientist. He likes to tinker, not destroy, but break apart and rebuild. Hence why his Zanpakuto restructures things in its Bankai. And elemental types are always the hardest ones to figure out, because there really isn't a set kind of personality you can look at with those. Because the individuals with elemental types, first off, are kind of far and few between. There aren't a lot of them. But second off, it seems to be tailored to something else. But with Madara, I look at it and I immediately see a guy who is a Kido type user. The reason I say Kido is he's a guy, he's a warrior, tried and true, but he's also very much a calculator, a thinker. He does know how to formulate a plan. He's kind of he is a little bit of the Aizen of Naruto, which is why we are eventually getting the fight between Madara and Aizen in Death Battle coming up later this year, which I'm stoked about. But he's still someone who very much enjoys combat. But I still see him as a Kido type. Now, the type of Zanpakuto we have, that would be very simple. He'd have a katana, I imagine. Sealed wise. Now, the release would be Envelop, which I believe is the same release as Ulquiorra's. I can't remember the name of it. It's Spanish for bat, basically. But yeah, Envelop. The name of the Zanpakuto would be Twilight Scorn with the Shikai. And then the Bankai would be Scorn One's Eclipse. Now, translated with the Google Translate, because you know that means this is going to be the accurate name. Shikai's name, oh god. Let me see if I can get this right. Towara Tono Kebetsu. Towaran Tono Kabatsu. Its Bankai would be God, I really should try to pronounce this before we actually do the video. It's Nishoku Kebetsu Shuretamono. That part I'm pushing is hardcore. Now, what I'm actually going to say what the spirit of the Zanpakuto is for a little bit after I say what the Zanpakuto actually does. What the Shikai looks like, I actually figure it looks like his war fan. He already has a weapon on call that actually makes a perfect kind of Zanpakuto release. But there's a catch here. The way this is designed, it's got two different sides, obviously. The dark part here would be a blade, almost 100%. This would be great, honestly, in just physical combat for both defense using the flat side and offense with the blade and the flat side. Hell, in the actual Naruto series, that Bane he used was able to actually take a tail beast Rasengan, for God's sake. That thing is a beast weapon, actually. But the catch, it wouldn't have the Uchiha symbols here. It instead would have a phase of the moon. You'd have a full moon, you'd have a new moon, a full moon on the other side, a waxing moon, and a waning moon. Now, this lends itself A to the ability of the Zanpakuto, but B to the spirit of the Zanpakuto. The spirit of the Zanpakuto would really just be a dark-haired man um, that looks kind of similar to Madara. But the difference is his appearance changes with the phases of the moon. It's a Zanpakuto that is actually tied to the lunar cycle. So when it is a new moon, it looks like a child. I'm trying to remember the actual phases. I believe it's waxing, waning is when it's disappearing, waxing is when it's gaining the fullness of the moon. So if I'm remembering that correctly. So yeah, new moon would be a child, waxing would be a young adult, full would be a full adult, and then waning would be an elderly adult. So whatever the phase of the moon is, that represents the Zanpakuto's spirit's appearance. And this is also true for the Zanpakuto's ability. This would be a very unique Zanpakuto that has an ability that's adjacent to the phase of the moon. And I feel like this actually really works well with Madara. He wanted to use the moon for the infinite Tsukuyomi, but he's also a very dark individual. He's an individual who, his darkness, his anger, all that definitely kind of dictate his emotions and his plans. So I feel a Zanpakuto that's controlled by the phases of the moon would be very apt. Now, what does the Shikai actually do? Well, it all depends on the phase of the moon. During a new moon, he can create illusions. Not to the same level as a Sasuke Aizen, who can literally manipulate your senses. That's different. I mean, it's not different in the sense that it's not illusions. It's different in how it's done. Then on a full moon, it actually has gravity manipulation capabilities, levels of gravity control. Now, what that could be, I mean, we know spiritual pressure, when it's used effectively, can do kind of the same thing. It can just force someone down. But this is the kind of thing where you can maybe like throw a wave of gravity, just manipulating everything, a cutting edge of gravity, I suppose. Not anything as serious as like a gravity well or a black hole, but cause things to lift up, maybe get rid of the gravity around someone, manipulate their own gravity to a degree. Under a waxing moon, he'd have water manipulation capabilities because the moon dictates the flow of the water, the tide. So it makes sense. A water manipulation capability could go with a moon manipulation ability, or a moon a ability controlled by the moon. And then finally, the waning moon. And I feel like this is just kind of like your standard Getsuka Tensho, Scream Benihime kind of attack. I'm trying to think of any other basic energy attacks we have in Bleach, because I'm pretty sure there's Tobayume's snap ability, a basic energy attack. I mean, don't get me wrong, Madara would clearly be an Eric Clapton class opponent, a Captain class opponent, so it would be a pretty powerful energy attack. But that's the Shikai. What does the Bankai do? Well, honestly, this actually, when I was thinking on it, I'm like, okay, how the hell do I make a Bankai for this then? Is it something like Shunsui that's, very, it's very, specific? I'm like, then I realized very quickly, well, the Bankai's weakness, or the Shikai's weakness, is Madara can't control what the ability is at any given time. He just needs to know what his ability is at any given time. So he just needs to know what phase of the moon it is, and he knows what his Zanpakuto is capable of doing at that time. The Bankai manipulates the phases of the moon, and it just strengthens all of the abilities he already has. So he can actually now rotate between all of his abilities, which are now maxed out far harder. Now, he'd still have to probably do some sort of motion, maybe hold the fan up, twist it, or something like that, and the phase of the moon changes. Now, you might be saying, well, wouldn't that affect everything? It's like, yes, it would. But then again, we have Yamamoto, whose Bankai could literally wipe out the existence of an entire dimension. So, it's not really as hacks as you might think. Or you have Ichimonji that can literally affect the very essence of who you are simply by tapping you with the blade. Or taking away everything that you are, including your name, powers, abilities, all that. So the ability to control the phases of the moon really isn't as hacks as you might think. Like, seriously, Bleach has some messed up abilities when you really look at it. The Almighty, for God's sake, is like one of the most broken abilities ever created for an anime or a manga. So yeah, that would honestly just be the manga. Nothing changed except the fact that maybe the blade glows or something like that. All Madara has to do is maybe hold the blade up real quick and just turn it, and it turns to the phase he wants. Or a weakness you could see in this is that while he can control the phases, he can't just jump from, say, a full moon to a new moon, which is the opposite side of the spectrum. He still has to go in order of new, waxing, wane, full, waning, and then back to new. But then again, you could just go ding, ding, ding. You could just rotate, rotate, rotate. And keep in mind, most of the time he'd probably be using this thing in the Soul Society, where the laws are they're like, we don't know if there's an ocean in the Soul Society, so we know there's water, there's rivers, but I don't know if there's an ocean in the Soul Society. As far as I know, there isn't, but who knows? It's entirely possible there could be. Either way, this is, I think, the Zanpakuto for Madara Uchiha. I personally like this whole concept myself. I'm more than willing to, but it is just my opinion. Nothing I do is like the canon definitive Zanpakuto for anyone. So if you've got a better idea or a cooler idea or just your own idea for a Zanpakuto, let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you folks next time.